Yeah, I was wrong. I was very, very wrong. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is just a game that when I initially saw it, the first trailers, the gameplay reveals and stuff, I did not think this game looked very special. It didn't look great, in my opinion. But now I've played it. I played it with an open mind. The game is fantastic. It is so good, I'm actually completely blown away. This is definitely in my picks of the year. This is in one of my favorite things I've played in all of 2024, and I want to explain why. I want to really discuss what Indiana Jones and the Great Circle does so exceptionally well, why I feel like this is the first real Xbox Series X game this entire generation that just completely melted my brain, and I want to discuss why I think Xbox needs to find a way to capture this magic because holy heck, this has the juice. Let's discuss. Hi, hope you're having a great day, and if you could, please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Now, before we dig into it, let's begin with two big caveats. First and foremost, please be aware I do not like Indiana Jones. I don't like the character. I don't like the movies and stuff like that. I don't actively hate him, but I've just never really been a fan. I watched the movies for the first time like pretty recently, and I thought they were just kind of hokey, whatever. They're fine. Additionally, I don't play my Xbox very much. So going into this, I was definitely coming in as an extreme skeptic, and it won me over. Pretty much in the first 30 minutes, you immediately understand the game, the flow, and the rare magic to it. Now, I want to get into what makes this game work so good, but first, let's begin with what this is. Indiana Jones is not an Uncharted style game. It's not a Tomb Raider game. Instead, this is more about really soaking up ambiance. It's about very slow, very methodical, very detail-oriented exploration. It's more about stealth than it is about shooting, which is kind of what caught me off guard the most. This is made by MachineGames, the people that made the Wolfenstein games. Now, you can watch my reviews of those because pretty much everything that MachineGames has ever done, I've given a 10 out of 10. So the idea of them pivoting to a different style of Nazi killing, but this time instead with pure stealth combat, sneaking around, doing stealth takedowns, trying to be undetected while solving puzzles and stuff. I was very, very skeptical, but I almost feel like what works so good about this is that there is a natural flow to how you get around. So, say while you're exploring a crypt, you see a big locked door. So you pull out a torch, start looking around, say you see some random mirror shining. So you go, okay, that's probably the puzzle piece, but how do I activate it? So your eyes stumble upon a lever, you pull it, it brings down the next hatch, you're able to move the mirror and open up that next big doorway that you initially saw. There's a bunch of times in this game where your eyes are being drawn to what is most apparent. This natural flow that makes it feel like you are the one doing the discovery. When I'm just sneaking through a random house, I'm trying to shortcut so I don't get caught by a bunch of Nazis in the streets, and I stumble upon a key or a note, and it gives me extra access, a new shortcut or something like that. It feels so natural, but I don't think it is. One of the things I love most about video games is when they manage to make it feel like you cracked the clues when really you didn't, right? Like when you're swinging a Spider-Man in the new Spider-Man games, it just feels so good. It has this really delicious flow where it feels like you are this extra badass web swinger when you're not. It's that incredibly good, brilliant design that locks you in, that really makes it feel like you're the person doing it when it's the game doing the heavy lifting. Indiana Jones manages to do that. While you're creeping around, while you're going through these different locations, it always feels like you are the first person to figure this out, and I love that magic to it. So, in this game, Indiana Jones, he's trying to just crack the mystery of the Great Circle. There's all these different relics, these holy sites. There's all sorts of stuff in a perfect circle around the globe. The Nazis have been trying to capture relics. They're stealing stuff. They're going to the Vatican and heisting things and stuff like that. And so you're trying to figure out why they're doing this, if this is magic, if this is power, if this is good or bad. You're trying to basically crack these clues before the Nazis can. And while you're doing this, the way it actually unfolds the story is a series of hubs where you essentially get a whole city, a whole chunk of map, and just get a chance to be completely freeform. What costume do you want to wear? What disguise? What style of combat? Do you want to be purely stealth? Do you want to just stay undetected? Do you want to whip a gun out of somebody's hand and risk shooting it, which will scare away a bunch of guard dogs, but probably attract a bunch more guards? This free-form style of gameplay is great because it's also how quests work. So while you're doing this, you do have main objectives. A lot of times it's like, all right, get a camera. Now you got to photograph a bunch of relics. You can put them together and crack clues about a secret entrance to the Vatican or something like that, right? But while you're doing the main quest, you'll overhear extra stuff. You'll find bulletin boards. You'll find cryptic sheet notes that talk about other events, secret Nazi meetings, or other unlockables and stuff like that. Now, this stuff is cool. I think the quest system is good, but there really isn't a need to do the side quests, which I'm not even going to count as a detriment, but in this game, there isn't really a typical leveling system. There is a skill tree with like adventure books. You find these novels all over the place, and if you read them, it gives you extra abilities. Like, oh, now when you die, Indy can pick up his hat and get a second life. You know, it's like Sekiro dies twice. You can die and come right back. Or, oh, now when I get hit, I can recover quicker, or punching people recovers my stamina quicker. These bonuses are so strong, but Indy is already incredibly tough. You know, it already feels like you get detected so rarely, you fight so rarely, it doesn't really feel like there's any actual need to do any of these side quests. But I do want to talk a bit more about the combat because it's very few and far between. This is a sneaking game first and foremost. This is the kind of game where you want to be out of sight and out of mind because if you get spotted, if it's one guard or two guards, if you're in an enclosed space like, you know, in ancient Egypt and you're underground or something like that, you can usually fight them off pretty easily. But Indy does not have a bulletproof vest. He's not a tough guy. If these dudes whip out their guns, you're pretty much insta-screwed. And I did notice that if you're out in the open, you might as well just hit restart checkpoint. It auto-saves quite a bit, but since you have such a tiny health pool, even though you can beat people up pretty easily, these people clump up. In every single level of the game, I had times where I failed because I was running. Even when I'm in an open area, even if it's not a restricted area, if you get spotted running or you whip your whip out or something like that, a lot of times it will just basically aggro every guard in every direction, and it's pretty much an instant fail. Now, the only thing about this is that it definitely feels like that's the point. I don't think it's a glitch or a problem, but it does kind of suck. Just when you're trying to crack a clue, you have the final piece of a puzzle piece or something, and then you aggro a bunch of guards and you revert a checkpoint, and it goes, oh, since you were in combat, we're going to revert the checkpoint back to when you were outside the base or something like that. So I did have a couple very annoying checkpoints. This is a tiny, tiny gripe though, but let's talk more about the mystery and the characters in Indiana Jones. So definitely what kind of caught me off guard is that Indiana Jones is not being voiced by Harrison Ford, but is instead being voice acted by Troy Baker, doing the most pitch perfect Harrison Ford imitation I've ever heard in my life. Like, it is surreal. It sounds 100% like Harrison Ford, to a point in which if you told me this was Harrison Ford, I'd believe you, right? But there's other characters as well. While you're going on this big, great quest, you run into treacherous villains. You actually run into Mussolini himself. Like, my gosh, the pinnacle of evil. But it's interesting that a lot of the heroes are so incredibly charming. I feel like a lot of games, when someone's supposed to be the love interest or quirky or cute, a lot of times for me, that stuff does not work. Here, when a character is supposed to be lovable or adorable, like one of the main characters you team up with for a huge chunk of the game is this journalist lady named Gina. She is perfect. The voice acting, the writing, the way she presents herself, her sassy comebacks, the times where she is, racing you to a puzzle piece and then makes a crack joke of, well, maybe I should be the Dr. Mr. Jones. She is fantastic. But I was actually completely shocked by Tony Todd being in this. Tony Todd died recently, and I'm a big Tony Todd fan. Obviously, he played Candyman, he played Venom in Spider-Man 2, he was in the X-Files. Like, I have been following Tony Todd so much. I love his career so much. And he's in this as a reoccurring villain. And it's so cool to see him again. I mean, I actually legitimately pointed at the screen. I literally had a Wojak moment being like, oh, that's how cool it is, because every actor is so funny. Every actor is so good. It manages to capture that vibe of Indiana Jones that I never really understood. To be honest with you, I think part of the reason I don't like the Indiana Jones formula is that it just feels so cliche, of the stupid music swelling and whip cracking something. It just never really fully worked with me because I didn't grow up with Indiana Jones. Whereas this, which is doing the exact same thing, but really kind of dragging it out, letting those moments simmer more, I feel like now I understand Indiana Jones. It almost feels like the difference between watching a movie and then reading the book the movie is based on. Now that it can actually sit there and stew with me a bit, I totally get Indiana Jones. Now, I have one other main complaint. Well, okay, two tiny complaints. One, it is really weird how many button presses it takes to do stuff sometimes. I feel like in a lot of stealth games especially, it really does come down to being able to react on the fly. Oh, there's a guard coming, I gotta zip down the side hallway. Or, oh, that guy's coming, I can't really fight back. I need to find a way to whip him or choke him out or do some sort of distraction like throwing a bottle or something like that. But I think this game has a bunch of button presses where you got to press right on the D-pad to open your menu and then select disguises or fix your gun. You have to manually get your gun out and reload it, and it just doesn't feel good. It's very weird how many button presses it takes to do stuff. Even like getting out your lighter, which should be normal, the lighter button and the camera button are the same button. And it feels weird sometimes to be trying to obviously whip out my lighter to scare off like a bunch of scorpions or something like that, and I'm suddenly getting out my camera in pitch darkness. It's times like that that are a bit irksome. And the other complaint I have is boss fights. Now, this is not a unique Indiana Jones problem. I've actually had this with other stuff recently as well. I've noticed that some games, they have this weird obsession with, okay, we have to have some sort of boss fight. We have to have some sort of big confrontation to pin off this chapter or this act. And I understand that mentality, but for games like Alan Wake 2, I kind of had this problem, or Cyberpunk, where it's a game that isn't really conducive to the idea of a boss fight. The combat in this is not deep. It's not fun, really, in my opinion. It is more about the stealth. So when suddenly Tony Todd's trying to punch my face in, and I'm there trying to hold the block button or getting out all the bullets I've saved and unloading a revolver point blank into his face, and he takes 12 shots to go down and stuff like that, the boss fights, they feel kind of hokey. I don't know. Boss fights in a lot of games now, I just feel like they're kind of outdated and archaic in a way of they're trying to emphasize a moment. They almost detract from the mood they've established. But I gotta say, overall, this game is good. It is really, really good. I think it's coming out on the PlayStation 5 coming up in spring, and I'm gonna double dip. I bought this on Xbox with my own money. I'm gonna buy it on PlayStation 5 with my own money, and I'm probably gonna platinum it. It is wild how good these puzzles feel. Just getting to solve that next clue, going through all these different cool holy sites and stuff like that, slowly unfurling a mystery like this with so many quips, with so much craziness. I am super, super blown away by how good this game is. If you have Game Pass, obviously it's coming on Game Pass. I think it's coming on Game Pass on Tuesday, the 9th. But if you pay for the early access, it's coming out today. So these are just some off-the-cuff thoughts. Feel free to spam DreamcastL in the chat. But I love you guys very much. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. And keep dreaming. I feel like the real lesson is I play every game with a completely open mind, because there have been genres that I wasn't a big fan of until I get a chance to experience it. And the fact that this feels so much like Dishonored or other stealthy games, which I don't typically love as much, and it manages to nail it, play games with an open mind. That's always been my thing. You'll never know what you're going to love. And if you just go into it gritting your teeth, being ready for the worst experience, you're only ruining your own good time. So, huge props to MachineGames. This is it. This is the juice for sure. If they can find a way to make more of these style adventures, I'd honestly play another one of these immediately. If they did DLC that's just more of these, like one more hub, more side quests, I'd absolutely do it in a heartbeat. But thanks for watching. You guys rock, and please keep dreaming.
Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.